Good morning, good morning. I'm out here in the garden just looking things over. That is some fat root action right there, isn't it? Isn't it some nice roots? Another big shoot coming out over here. Just growth everywhere. Just growth everywhere. Lots of little buds popping out. This is that a Wanagera apple blossom. Look at the base of that new shoot compared to the base of the other one. Look what happens when that nutrient, when the nutrients get close to where they're supposed to be. Look how much strength we got in that one versus the other ones. Look at the big roots popping out on their own too. Very, very happy about that. Looks like that plant's gonna finally start. What a setback I caused it. What a setback. Just lots of growth. Somebody asked about this one. This is that Dendrobium speciosum. I put in the limestone, and we're asking if anything was happening, and yes, lots of roots coming out everywhere, even on the old bulbs. I've noticed the old growths in there are getting green tips popping out on them. So happy to see that. Just keep an eye on it and just watch and see what happens. I'm hoping that's going to provide a tiny, tiny trace amount of calcium and a little tiny bit of magnesium on a regular basis from that rock, and we'll see how they like it. If they get down and start really grabbing onto it and acting like they mean business, then we know we made the right decision. The root action on the Renanthera back there. I'm just out here looking around at things, and I want to go ahead and answer a question I get asked all the time, and I don't mind. They're all great questions. This is a question I guess I'm going to use this video to refer back to. When anybody asks me this question, I'm just going to put in the link for this video. I get asked this question a lot. Can I use my tap water for a source of calcium? Can my orchids get calcium from my tap water? Can I use tap water on my orchids? I've got that bottle sitting there for a reason, but I'm just going to pan by it. It's one of those yes and no questions. If I say no, you can't, and I'm going to say no for your orchids, no, you can't rely on your tap water for a source of calcium. Don't rely on your tap water for a source of calcium. All right? And that goes for 99% of the people watching and 99% of the people growing orchids. Find a better source of pure water for your orchids. If your tap water is under 50 parts per million, you could use that on your orchids, and I would probably use it if I had tap water of that quality, and that's good tap water. You're fortunate. I probably wouldn't use it for mixing nutrients. If I'm only feeding 100 to 125 parts per million or 150 parts per million of nutrients, I don't want a third of that to be 30% of that or 33% of that to be defoaming agents, chlorine, and other things that are supposed to kill living organisms in tap water. I hope that makes sense. I might use it for flushing, and even then would still occasionally need some even cleaner water to flush that with, because 50 parts per million in tap water is still probably a lot of sodium and things of that nature, and it will collect after time. I don't use the tap water. I collect rainwater, but I'm very fortunate. All my rain barrels got flushed out last night and are clean and full of 4 part per million rainwater right now, so I'm very, very fortunate. Tap water contains calcium carbonate. It does contain calcium, but it contains calcium carbonate. Calcium carbonate is not water soluble. Plants cannot use it. A plant that's in the ground that has soil around it, microbial activity, it can use calcium carbonate. It can break it down. It takes a time for that to be broken down and then for it to be absorbed. Orchids, and here's where that yes and no question is. The only yes part of this would be like when it pertains to orchids. If I had terrestrial orchids, or if I had orchids that were where I lived in a warm climate where they lived outside, I had them on my patio or out on trees in my yard, and those plants were out there for a while and had developed a fauna around them, microbial activity around them. Could I spray them with my hose and they would get some calcium from that? Possibly, yes, they may get some. You still may have to supplement because I still don't think there's enough in there. Tomatoes are in the soil. We use tap water on them. We use the water from our hose, and we still have to give them a supplement to stop blossom end rot. Correct? So sometimes there's just still not enough, even though there's some in there and they can use it. Regardless, orchids can't use the tap water for a source of calcium. They can't break that down. They don't have that microbial activity. Most of them, the ones that we keep in our enclosed environments, they can't, if that makes sense. So you have to use a supplement. Now this is calcium carbonate, just like what you have in your tap water, but the reason this works, calcium carbonate like what's in our tap water, and I know I'm rehashing something, but this is a weird concept for people to grab, and they keep asking about it. So the calcium carbonate that's in our tap water, when we drink it, the acid in our stomach breaks that molecular bond. When we put tap water on the ground, that microbial action breaks that molecular bond and it can be absorbed, just like in our stomach. This is calcium carbonate, like what we have in our tap water, but this is chelated. All right? Orchids don't have stomach acid, and they don't live in soil, and they don't have that microbial activity, so they can't use tap water as a source of calcium. This is calcium carbonate, just like what's in tap water, but this is chelated. If you look on the back, it says chelated. Chelated means that it's kind of like pre-broken down already for you. It's bonded to a mineral or a metal is what they do, but basically for our use, it's pre-broken. It's like the stomach acid thing. It's pre-broken. So when you give this to your plants, it's a great source of soluble calcium that they can absorb, and at a much easier range than like calcium nitrate. Calcium nitrate's a fertilizer. This is a supplement. There's a huge difference. You don't use fertilizers to make up for a low amount of one nutrient. You use a supplement for that, if that makes sense. Again, just my take, my opinion on all this. I don't have that much experience growing orchids. I dabble in hydroponics. Use something like this for your source of calcium. But more importantly, before you even use something like this, is make sure that you look at the back of your package of the nutrient mix that you're feeding. Better Grow doesn't have a calcium in it, so this is great to add to Better Grow. MSU, I would not add that with MSU. I would feed it separately when I'm flushing or something like that, give it to them, yes. Or to individual plants I think that needed more calcium, and there's definitely some plants that are going to need more calcium without a doubt, different talk, but this is about tap water. This whole video is about, can I use my tap water for a source of calcium? No, don't rely on it for a source of calcium. Even if you know for a fact that you have a lot of calcium in your tap water, it's not the type of calcium that they can absorb. This they can absorb very, very easily at a wider pH range, so you don't have to fight your pH with pH down and citric acid and things like that. Anywhere between 5.8 and 7, you're probably okay. And maybe even into the low 7s. It'll get a lot of calcium and magnesium from that, okay? But more importantly, read your labels. The percentage of calcium that I feed to my plants is anywhere from 8 to 10% is what I'm trying to do with my mix right now. It seems to be working real well. I'm having to watch them. Some of them I think might be getting a little too much, but some of the others I think are loving it and maybe even need a little more. So it's one of those experience things, and I don't have it. Regardless, use this as a source of, and I'm not just promoting calcium or CaliMagic or CalMag. There's a lot of people buying that. I should be getting a royalty from it, I think. Regardless, use something like this, but read the back of your labels, read the back of your mix, make sure you don't have calcium in that mix. If you do, feed something like this separate if you think you need some additional calcium. The signs of calcium, the biggest signs of calcium are dieback. When you get flower spikes that keep dying back, that, I hear people say all the time, if I look at my flower spikes, they die back. I heard somebody say that the other day. That plant's trying to tell you something. It's really trying to tell you something. Most of the time when a flower spike dies back, or brand new growth dies back, a new shoot dies back, or root tips die back, it's calcium related. It's calcium related. Calcium can cause other nutrient deficiencies at the exact same time too. I'll go over that in another video because I've got a couple of plants that are having that issue. A calcium deficiency causes a nitrogen deficiency. But I'll show that to you here later. Don't use your tap water as a source of calcium. Use a supplement as a source of calcium for your orchids, or make sure that your mix has calcium in it, and adequate calcium. Remember, most mixes are just made to cover the majority of orchids, and some of those on the outside of the scale won't get enough, and some are getting too much. So a supplement's a great way to give those ones that still need that extra calcium, that are growing crazy growths and big, huge growths and growing fast. And there's lots of reasons a plant might need calcium. But use a good supplement for that, please. And you won't go wrong. You'll get this kind of growth. I'm just sharing what my plants are doing, that's all. Anyway, have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching. Any questions, please let me know. Thanks for listening.